The Idris-M in the latest 4.0 EPTU wave builds has its ramp still on the rear doorway of its hangar. So when that door opens, this is the ramp that's available to the ship. Thank you to my long subscribers for sticking around. Please consider subscribing if you have not in the recent time, I guess you'd say. So why is this ramp incredibly critical? It is incredibly critical because it is the platform of why this ship is so good for Planetside and Moonside logistics, in particular combat logistics. And it is the part I've hung an entire argument around of why the Idris series is so good. Being able to plop on a ramp out and then roll out an entire massive hangar worth of vehicles, ships, cargo, dual cargo elevators from above, and just dropping all that all at the same time in such a huge ship is incredibly good. On top of that, one of the other things that was a big surprise for those who found it, and credit goes to Patrick Bateman of Pipeline, who allowed me to use these photos. All of this is from him, despite what you've been seeing floating around the community. But you'll see these HUDs. So the advanced HUDs are in for both the pilot seat as well as the turret seats in the Idris-M that you fight with the interior in the game. You can also see that the doorways have a proper HUD as well. So all this modernization is going quietly into the Idris. And it's pointing us towards what we believe will be, at the very least, a modernized tour for players to view in the upcoming Invictus Launch Week, Fleet Week, event, where it's focused on the UEE military ships, and the Idris is usually prominently placed, at the very least. And of course, it's sold as part of the event. These is a note of how the medical facilities look now. You can see that there are four what used to be recovery beds, as they were called. And it used to be the idea that these would be a lower tier than the other one. I'm going to show you a photo in a moment of how the upper tier bed, let's call it, the advanced bed, is looking. And you'll note that all five beds, if you count the old school recovery beds, and this higher end bed, all have patient check-in stations, although the stations pointed the wrong direction on the four on the other side. I believe that if the recovery beds are made to tier 2 and this becomes your tier 1 bed, then this would have a much better layout of medical facilities than the Polaris we have currently in game with its 4 tier 2 beds. I've said before that the more beds you have, the more you can respawn very quickly, and also it will cost more resources to do more advanced mechanisms. But anyway, back to the main event, is that the ramp has been confirmed to still be in the game and has this beautiful animation showing it in action, and it's quickly deployable. Now, I think that the ramp in general is going to become much, much more valuable when we get into outpost games. So if you're attacking an outpost or trying to defend an outpost or building an outpost, being able to pop open this ship with its massive capital shields, its PDCs covering it, defending it from incoming weaponry, and its tons of missiles and turrets and such of all types, being able to just roll out an entire army of tanks, aircraft, spacecraft, and also offload a bit of cargo to resupply, just laughing off anything that's being fired from the ground, such as ballista and centurions, is going to be a really crazy ship. And it probably will have to get balanced with some type of anti-capital weaponry for outposts. So outposts in more contentious places that are desirable and fought over and such will probably need some type of capitally weapon platforms, maybe ship-to-ship turrets that are mounted on the ground or something, or torpedo banks and then jam, and then you have to work around that. So you jam out their PDCs or break their PDCs, so then those banks of torpedoes can do their job. And obviously, the critical expense they have is really interesting. Also, flipping gears for a moment, now that we know how expensive the Polaris torpedoes are, that are 500K a piece now, and 290 to 390K a piece for the Eclipse and Tally size 9 torpedoes, it shows that the Polaris's and torpedo boats in general, such as the Tally and such, are a little less desirable because of their high running cost. And if the ship is destroyed, the insurance does not cover those losses of those torpedoes. The Idris, you lose some smaller weapon systems that are missile based and everything, but its actual weapon platform is a fireable weapon. There's a spinal turret, and it has a bunch of gun turrets as well that are the true things, and it's PDCs, none of which require any of the 500K per volley type weapon systems. Now we have it'll remain to be seen how expensive railgun shots are, but in particular the Idris-K's Exodus size 10 laser beam is extremely desirable because it does not have a 500K a shot once again, and it's size 10 weaponry, and you can't destroy it in flight. As far as we know, those weapons can be fired, and there is no destroying the shot's DPS, its alpha, before it actually hits the target. It either hits or it doesn't. And that is a tremendous difference when you compare it to the slow-moving size 10 torpedoes that can be destroyed en route, eliminating the ability of those weapon systems to actually do anything at the time, unless you coordinate around it and have support destroy the PDCs, kind of carve out the way, keep enemies from screening out the weapon systems from hit, while they're en route, fire. Basically, you got to create like a corridor of influence and control that part of the fight to get those torpedoes in from that direction. And I've said this before and I'll say this again, if your target is spinning so the other side of its ship that is not as damaged presents itself with its full shields and its working PDCs, if you didn't do them all, I can't help but notice that's going to be a critical thing for the Polaris versus a ship like the Idris series, or to a lesser extent the Kraken series, that enjoy those turret-based weapons for most of what they do that's from the ship to the target. Now, the Idris is meant more for more brawling. It's more military-minded, has redundant hallways, it's got proper medical to be able to kind of keep up with the deaths and injuries and such that are going to occur in a fight. But at the end of the day, I don't think the Kraken is at that same tier as the Idris, and I've always stuck to that. And on to that topic, the Idris and the Kraken are built for different things. The ramp makes a huge difference. Now the Kraken could be redesigned by the time we finally get it, but right now how it works is there's just a large elevator that brings items in and out of the Kraken's very large cargo holds. It's a well-endowed ship, but it's mainly geared towards ease of use on the top of the ship, not the bottom of the ship. So what I mean by that is rolling vehicles in and out, quickly being able to drop cargo and getting out of there. It's not really meant for that. It's meant to be up in space, running an entire flight of fighters and 2 medium ships, all landing, resupplying, and getting out there again to go do another sortie. And most likely the Kraken won't even be in the fight. It would, ideally, at least based on my theory crafting anyway, you would place the Kraken just on the edge of where you need to get people, deploy the entire wing, and then come back and pick them up at another vector, the ones that are still alive, and regroup for another for a whole second wave of the fight. Versus an Idris, which is more Planetside, Moonside, landing, deploying all the resources to attack or defend a site, and either sticking around or not, most likely getting using its strong VTOL capabilities to get back up into the air, and then using that size 10 to good effect, as well as its turrets, to suppress the enemy, hold them down, and make them regret their decision to attack your outpost, or make them regret building an outpost there. To the unshielded places that you would fight, the more contentious zones, the more risky places. So that's kind of where, based on the limited information we have right now, I'm kind of at with these ships. I wanted to share these new images, and I thank, again, Patrick Bateman from Pipeline for sharing these images from the EPTU Waves latest build. And if you've seen them floating around with different watermarks and other things like that, what he's done is basically he's just shared them wholeheartedly with everybody, and apparently people have just slapped their own watermarks on them. So that is what it is, and he's a good sport about it. And once again, he gave me permission to use these images, and it is really awkward being an Idris owner myself, that we can't just spawn the damn ship by now. I don't care if parts of it are locked off. Much like my Polaris, I truly enjoy having it in my hands now, and seeing parts of the ship come up and running over time would not be the end of the world to me. I really want to see the Idris already in my hangar. I'm tired of it being trotted out with a beautiful working interior for tours, and a beautiful working interior for the latest and greatest PvP mission or PvX mission, where it's PvE content mixed with PvP, and oh, everybody gets it, and then they run away with the Idris. And it's like, just let the owners have the dang Idris already. And also that starts the clock finally where orgs can start seeing a price put on this Idris, or that'd be a fun initial in-game construction event. After we get Outpost a few months later, set it up where orgs can build an Idris for a considerable amount of resources and time investment. But that would be really fun to see, that they could build it like at an outpost, build this big bay, and slowly build an Idris. Like, it would be one of the first things in the game that would truly excite orgs to actually get involved, aside from the outposts themselves. That would be like a true crowning achievement, much like the Bengal is encouraging people to be thinking about space stations that we don't know that much about yet. I do appreciate the Q&A that CIG did about outposts. Mostly it was about outposts recently, and I'm going to do some more video about that in the near future, but I wanted to get this out there now. I had a moment to talk about it and kind of go where I'm at. And I couldn't help but compare the capital class vessels with what we see. And this is one of the few things that truly reassures me, is seeing the Idris again have its ramp. Truly reinvigorates my desire to see this ship in the game in players' hands. Actually in players' hands would be most welcome. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for your time, and have a good evening.